Good morning there, Pete. Here's your corner number 2, huh?
Exactly.
So let's.
We made it to 2 in a
So are
row.
we really gonna talk? This is great. So we're gonna have a double header again. Uncle Pete's gonna start off with refactoring features. Then we're gonna cut the recording, and then Wolfgang's gonna come on, and we'll start the recording again. So they'll be split. So I am going to open up your screen a little bit more. And thank you everybody for coming on. Let's clear the chat and then get it bigger. How's that? Oops. Bring the chat up. Okay. There we go. It's all yours, Pete.
All right. Good morning out there in WX land this morning. Well, I kind of gave you all a teaser that we were going to be talking about refactoring code. What we're actually going to be talking about is a very specific feature of the code refactoring. We're all aware that the code base between WebDev, WinDev, WinDev Mobile is a common code base. Most of our W language commands work across all. That's great and wonderful. That's probably one of the reasons we bought the product, but you still don't want to be copying that code. You know, if you've got some code that does some little whiz bang thing, you don't want to have that code maintained in 2 separate projects. They've given us a way to do what they call target conditional code, so that we can write some code
Hey,
that.
Pete.
Yes, sir.
Pete,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt, but there's something that keeps beeping, like beep beep.
Not on
You
my
remember like
side.
last time? Yeah.
Yeah, not on my side. There's nothing.
Okay. I think it might be your battery again. Is what Chris says.
No, I've fully charged. So.
Okay. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
All right. Well, anyway, what they do is they give us what they call target conditional code, so that we can write our code, and then if there's some specific WinDev or WebDev functions that we're using, we can put those in those specific conditional code sections, so that the code will be able to work in both environments seamlessly. And then we can share that same code without reproducing it in 2 places. And what I've done is I have modified the default manager to use some of those features. And let's run the most inspired web application ever here. And I'll show you what we did. Okay, this is a great little application. I'm assuming that the user has logged on. Yeah, I wrote this in 10 minutes. What I did was went out there and got our regular user, and our first page comes up and says, welcome back, regular user. Okay, regular user is his logon name, not really a great name for him. Now, I could, at this point, I showed this to the boss. He came back and said, they need a way to put in their nickname, so that you show their nickname instead. And so I could have added the field to the database, added that to my edit screen for their profile. And then 2 weeks later, they come back and say, some users, they really don't like having that welcome back message on their home screen. Give them the ability to take it off. Now I'm back adding another field to the database. So that's another area where the default manager can come into place. I can store those as defaults in the default manager, not have to create database fields, not have to do all that. So what I did was I created a little pop-up window that lets him put in his nickname, and then say whether or not he wants the welcome message. So if we put in nickname, now it says welcome back, Pete. And just so you can see that it has remembered that setting. Now knows that that's my nickname. That's what I want to see. Same way, I can actually turn off the welcome message altogether. Again, not the most inspired features, but good for a demo.
No, but you know, that's kind of important stuff that you can just take care of easily and not worry about again.
Exactly. Well,
You
the
know.
key to me is not having to fool with database settings and modifying your database all the time. So how did we do that? Let's look at that first. Uh, and this is all the code of the window. Like I said, I'm assuming that the user is logged on because I didn't write a login screen yet. So we're forcing user 2 to always be logged on. And then it just says welcome back, login. So that would have been the original code of the page before the boss came in and started asking for additional features. So from there, what I did was I created a pop-up screen, and that's why these fields have a prefix of pop-up settings. So I'll show you that pop-up screen in just a second. And I go out and get the default. We saw this last week in Uncle Pete's Corner using the default manager. Uh, Nickname is user global, which means that he's not going to have a different nickname on every page. The show welcome message is specific to this particular page, the home page. So that one is stored as a user window setting. And then here's my code to say, if they gave me a nickname, use their nickname. If they don't want to see the welcome message, hide the welcome message. From there, we can go in page, pop-up settings is the name of my pop-up. Here's the pop-up page I created where I put those edit controls. Nothing special there. And when you're looking at your page, the thing to remember, pop-up pages are really just part of your page. It's the same thing that we had before 17 with having cell displays. It just makes the pop-ups over in another area, makes the screen a little easier to maintain and cleaner. But all your code still lives in your main page code. So here's the code that is on that close button. And also on that close button, I am doing a couple of save defaults to save those defaults that he just set on that pop-up back out. And I'm also fixing bugs as you wait. Just resetting the screen so that whatever new choices he made reflects right away. So once those defaults are saved, the next time we run the page, the get defaults are going to get them. All right, so that's the use of the default manager, which really isn't what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is the refactoring of that code and being able to use that default manager both on WINDEV and WebDev.
Hey, Pete, I don't understand with the default manager. How did you have the nickname come up for different users? I mean, is it tied to that user ID somehow?
Because you're saying store user default, and one of
Uh-huh.
the things that you do with the class when you declare the class is you tell it what global variable you're storing the user ID in, so that way it's able to associate all of the defaults that are user global or user window with
Oh,
that
yeah.
particular user. So there's our project code. You'll notice I commented out the registry because with the website, although we could store stuff in the registry, it really doesn't make sense, and I highly recommend against it because you're going to run into all kinds of issues with security and what have you. So when I'm using the default manager on a website, I don't use save to registry at all. I do everything to the database. So anyway, let's go take a look at our original default manager class before I made the changes. I believe I have not made the changes over here yet. And just a second, guys, I'll get it back on the screen for you.
Before you get off of that, on the GUI error on the bottom.
That's because I haven't put a title page on the home page of that screen. I'll show you what that's about in just a second.
But is that an error or a warning? It really is an error?
It's a GUI errors are warnings, but they're
Okay.
it's one of those how do you do you consider it an error or a warning? Because you really should have a title on all your pages so that they look right in the browser and all of that stuff. Okay, so here's the original class before I made any modifications to it. And surprisingly enough, I only had to make a couple of changes to make this class work for both WebDev and WinDev. The first thing is these warnings. Warning is not supported in WebDev, so I just changed those to infos. No big deal. I'll just throw up an info box instead of a warning box. But the real problem was this code right here, get window name. That's how, you notice when you say save the default, you don't have to specify what the window name is that that default is for. The class is managing that for you. And this is the code that's doing that. If it's an internal window, there's some special code going on to get the name of the actual window that internal window is being hosted inside. Otherwise, it uses the my window name. Now, the problem with this code is my window does not exist in WebDev. It's my page. And you don't have internal window controls in WebDev. So if we were to put this code in WebDev, we would get compile errors here. It would not run. So that's why we need this targeted conditional code. So now let's look at the new version of the class. As I said, I changed those to infos, no big deal there. But here is where the magic took place. In get window, now you see we have this target up here. It's got these little breaks in our code, and it says that for Windows code, do this. For WebDev code, do this. So now
No,
what this
no,
is
that's
going to
way too
do,
cool. That's way too cool, Pete.
yes, it is. So now, because this is running in WebDev, this code never executes. This code does execute. So now this procedure comes in and says get window name. Window name is a string. Window name equals mypage.name. Result window name. That's the only code that will ever execute. We won't get a compile error because this code is completely ignored by the application. Just the opposite happens in any of our Windows applications. We come through, it's going to execute this code. This code will not be seen at all, and it'll return the name. So by doing that, we have now created our class where we can use it in WinDev and WebDev both. And that means that when I added this class to my project, I shared it from my SCM. And as you see, WinDev projects and WebDev projects both sharing the same class, which means that anytime I modify this class, all those projects will get the updated code. There's really only one version of this class wandering around. I don't have half a dozen versions of this class that I'm trying to maintain and keep changes straight between them. So how did we
How do you
add
put that?
these?
How do you put that? Yeah, how do you put that? Is it that's almost like a compile directive in for Clarion, isn't it?
It
It's kind of
is,
like
yeah, it is, and I searched for a long time for compiler directives, and they don't really have them other than these. I wish we had true compiler directives. How we do these is we come up here, and the interface is a little quirky. If you come in here and delete lines, sometimes you'll get your code jumping out of your conditional section. So it's best to leave some space before and after your code to keep it from getting a little squirrely on you. So all you do is you come in here and you do code, conditional target code. We want a new area. Do we want WinDev code, WebDev code? You can make code that's specific to two. So by checking those two, the same code will execute for both WinDev and WebDev. Or we can say just WebDev. Or you can go full on crazy and you can say, you know what, it's WebDev, but it's only for a Linux WebDev site. So you can notice how there's all these bits and pieces of 32-bit, 64-bit, Java. So you can actually get down to all of those specific targets. If you got some code only for a web service, or only if you're compiling it to a 32-bit Windows service. So you have all those different options if you go into that advanced. And then deleting it is the same way. You can come in here and you can do code. If we were in a section, code, additional code, we could delete that area. And if we decide that we don't need it for a particular one, we could turn it off. So by clicking over here is another way. You see where our checkboxes are, so we can turn on or off specific ones.
that's actually pretty cute.
Yes, it is. Again, it's what I love about the environment is they almost force you to refactor your code. They make it so easy. Uh, highlight a sec. And what I do when I'm working, quite often, I'll be working on some code like this, and once it gets over 10 or 15 lines behind a button, behind in a init or something, I'll come in and do this. I'll highlight that code, right click, and say create a procedure, create a local procedure containing the selected code, set up screen. And it
Damn,
just
damn.
made the
Are you
function.
kidding me?
Yeah. So now the beauty of this is that, and really what I should have done is not put those two in there. This is what refactoring is all about. Okay, so now I've got my setup screen. Now guess what happens here? This code goes away. And remember that bug fix I made earlier? This is why we refactor code. I didn't make that bug fix on both, did I? So now, it's all about only having your code in one place. That way You never have to worry about your code getting out of sync if there's only one copy of your code laying around.
So talking about refactoring, if you found that you had code here and you had it in another procedure, how do you refactor that? I mean, within one procedure, I can see how easy it is to do it.
Well, actually, when you highlight that code, one of the options there, create global procedure.
There you go.
And the other thing, and my code didn't have anything, it's actually smart enough. It will sense certain things about your code. Let's see if I can get this to work. Let's come up here and do declare a variable. I don't know if this will work or not, but you're really going to be amazed when this works. All right, now we come up here and we say create, actually we just do it, create a global procedure containing the selected code. All right, because I created that as a global procedure and my test was not an appropriate one. Now what it did was it knows I can't get to those two screen fields. So it actually sensed that, looked at my code, saw that, does its best to kind of figure out what I'm doing, and actually set those up to be parameters passed in, rewrote my code, you know. So now,
That's
it's
crazy.
not perfect. It's not perfect by any means, but it gets you one step closer. And I just learned something very interesting there. Pop-up setting, it passed in pop-up settings, which is that pop-up window, and it treats that as a structure. I can reference, whoa, okay, put that one in my head. I wasn't aware of that. But again, not only did it refactor my code, but it kind of got me on the way of, these are probably the parameters you need to pass. And it's not perfect. It doesn't always get the exact parameters that I need, but what other environment even makes the attempt? I mean, it's insane. If you're not refactoring your code with WINDEV, WebDev, I guess you're just lazy. And really, you're not lazy because it's so easy that, it's a lazy man's dream. So we got any questions, or did everyone follow what we did this morning?
Yeah, we got a good list of people here.
They all came to see Wolfgang.
Yeah, maybe, but I doubt it. Both of you guys I came to see. Any questions, type it in the chat. Raise your hand. You can you guys know how to raise your hand on that thing. Let's see. Let me just put the list up there. Diego Sanchez says, Pete, I hope you live 100 plus years more. I'll try and make make it to your webinars. Uncle Pete's Corner, he's going to be on a little rocking chair still doing it.
I'm on a rocking chair now. What are you talking about? I appreciate that, Diego. And, you know, I know I harp on this every week, but I encourage everyone to do the same thing. You know, yeah, all of us have worked out some kind of little trick or something, and it really does. Once you do a couple of them, you'll find out how much better it makes you and your code. You know, it kind of forces the code reviews that you know, we learned in college and never really did. You know, as you see, Wolfgang, we've got him addicted now. What's this, his third one now? So
I think he is addicted.
it's addicting. It's addicting.
Yeah,
All
it's,
right, well,
it's like you said. Okay. So if there's no questions for Uncle Pete, we're gonna stop the recording, start again with Wolfgang. So any questions? Yeah, Bob Bruce got really addicted fast. You know, he would have gone more than 4 in a row but we had to stop him.
Yeah, exactly. He was hogging the show.
All right. So if there's no questions, we're gonna stop the recording and move on. Okay. Any questions? Bob, is that a question or is that a addictive thing? Oh, look at that. He has 2 more coming up. I think he's going to talk next week, by the way. His addiction has come back. Okay. Stopping the